Hey, it's Jason ODB, the Lincoln Addict, hitting you with another video. Man, do I love doing these. Thank you to everyone that's come back and watched them, even just for a few minutes. But if you can, let them play through. It definitely helps my watched minutes on my channel, so thank you so much. If you're new here, consider subscribing, leave a thumbs up and a comment if possible. Let's jump right in. 1966 Lincoln Continental must-see drive. Must-see/drive, low miles, best we've ever seen, okay? Typically, I'm a little skeptical of this because, if it's a local dealer, it could be the best they've ever seen, but it doesn't mean it's the best out there. Lakeland, Florida is what I look at here, and I see that we're kind of in a different category now. Reserve not met in the bidding, although 10 bids at a 51,000, just north of 51K. You see here, Primo Classic, and then it's 1,773. So it shows they've done plenty of business. That's a good thing, okay? I typically am going to click here first, and I'm going to use my right and left arrows, and I'm going to scroll through really quick to get a bird's eye view. What you're going to find is there's only going to be typically about 10 or 15 photos here. And what I'm seeing is a super nice car, and we're going to go through this one. I mean, a really, really nice looking car. At this point, you have to start to say, hey, is this within my budget? The thing that I always tell people is you can buy a car less. We saw a 67 convertible with one of these videos the other day sell for $18,000 and change. And you go, well, wow, why is this one at 51K? And the reserve hasn't even been met. It's because that $18,000 car is going to need 30, 40, 50 grand to put into it to make it look potentially as nice as this car. Okay. So when we scroll down here, the difference is, and the reason why I wanted to do the last video comparing a listing that was on Bring a Trailer is, although eBay's been around way longer than Bring a Trailer, you will see key differences, and there's not really a section that breaks down that VIN plate. And I always encourage people, get a photo of the VIN plate or look at the photo and look at the DSO and Google that to see where was the original destination. That's key because we want to know, was this car a Florida car? Was it a California car? So on and so forth. And that gives us a little bit of insight to how underneath the car is going to look later. But from here, you could see just the basic information. Of course, it was a 462 in 66, 67, and part of 68. Of course, it's a convertible. They've got the VIN number. It's a V8, obviously. It does mention must-see, drive low miles, best we've ever seen. Vehicle does not have an existing warranty, of course. When you get down here, it says it was an estate car. That typically means that it could have come from someone that had a lot of money. It's part of an estate. They more than likely go to these estate sales, and you never know what they could have picked it up for. And that's fine, because the name of the game for anyone is to make some money, and they're in the business to sell cars, it looks like. So let's take a look and see how nice of an estate car it was or is. Again, 462 was a 4-barrel. It kind of gives some of the key information. A lot of this is standard. If it's a convertible, it's power windows, power locks, so on and so forth, right? But it just gives you that kind of overall assessment of what you're looking at. Laser straight body, so that's a good thing. Chrome on rear front bumpers, that front and rear, that's standard. It does say that it has a tilt column. Again, in 66, 67, and might have been 8, 9, those 3-4 years, GM did make the tilt column, so the tilt column is easier to service, okay? What you see here is, again, really, really nice. I start to kind of look at the gapping here, and if this was a full restoration, it kind of tells me, hey, they put everything back together. You have all of the panels on. Everything looks really good. I can see here the seats look fantastic. I do not see the auto dimmer here and the peak molding that's on the driver's side. That's fine. That just gives a little bit of idea on how highly optioned this car is. Again, you can see this front three-quarter shot from the passenger side. Everything looks really good. I'm impressed with this grill. They're made out of pot metal, and there typically will be pitting on these grills. So I'm often kind of skeptical on how nice the grill is going to be. I mentioned this the other day, that the key tell or giveaway that it's a 66 is you have this front star emblem, and that's one key thing. Also, 66, 67, you had the option for the key near the fuel filler, and that was a feature. Contrary to some folks, they think that was automatic. It was not, but this allows for you to insert the key and open the deck lid. You could think like maybe someone runs to the grocery store or to the local store and they just need to throw something in the back for whatever reason, or they need to get something out of the back like golf clubs or something to that effect. You can insert the ignition key here, and you can turn it. You can open the deck lid. Then you can turn it the other way, and it will close. It kind of bypasses the switch that's up here. Again, rear 3/4 shot. You're seeing basically you have all of the key pieces here. These little items go over the lens covers in the back. You've got your reverse lights down here. I tend to like to look in this region. I had a 67. And these bumperettes, they typically within this area right here, they'll just get a little bit hazy. But you can tell when someone kind of comes in here and polishes all this and it looks real nice, it shows either the car was really well kept or it could have been well kept and they did a very, very nice detail on it. You have all of the letters here that spell Continental. Again, you can see from this angle, there's really no pitting. Typically, these grills will not be super nice. And again, it's because it's pot metal and the metal just kind of tends to pit. And I've seen some pretty bad ones. I actually own kind of a wall hanger, if you will, which is one that was from a personal car. So let's continue. Again, very great presentation so far. They've got the top down, which is what you want to see in those first few photos, because you immediately imagine, hey man, if I could afford this car, I'm going to want to have the top down cruising. You can see the just the real attention to detail. I mean, again, if this car was ever resprayed, I mean, it is a really nice paint job. I could tell you this, on these cars, just to take off all this chrome and molding and things like that, it's a lot of work to do. So just know that. Here you can see the top looks fantastic. What I always like to look at, and I pointed this out on other cars, is you'll typically sometimes have a little bit of signs of rust and things like that on these package trays and whatnot. And this car just looks really, really stunning. 3/4 shot. I'm looking here. Obviously, all the hubcaps are on, and everything looks very, very nice. Sometimes here on the rear bumpers, I mentioned I always look to kind of see how bad is the pitting, how bad, are there any dents or dings. Some of this can sometimes just be the lighting. So I would encourage you, just to look at all the photos the best you can. The rear trunk, I mean, this is super awesome, super clean. Although my eyes want to kind of go in here, I'm looking here to see, wow, are these nice weather stripping pieces? If they're maybe changed out, were they steel rubber, which is who I suggest. There are a few other players in the game in terms of moldings, but this all looks really nice, at least, again, from what I'm seeing here. In 66, 67, they did have different pieces back here, these plastic pieces, if you will, and this kind of shielded some of these items and just made it a cleaner appearance. You see, of course, the bar. This was placed by Lincoln, and this allows for there to be no flexing between these two kind of cast pieces here. You have the spare tire, and sometimes this is referred to as the toilet seat, and how it kind of flaps up, but all of this looks great. You've got the little curtain here that kind of hides some of the items, and again, everything looks fantastic. When I look at this, I always look in this deck lid area, and I look in a couple of the photos, I do see that I mean, my assumption is that it was repainted at some point, but it was a high-end paint job. That's just my assumption. But, I mean, when you look in here, I mean, this car really, really, really looks nice. You can see sometimes they'll have this electrical tape or different tape. The way these lines come down, they're typically just kind of sitting there, and most of the time you'll see a zip tie, and that might have even been factory, but this isn't anything to be worried about. You can see it looks like all the screws are here. I mean, just a really, really, really nice car. One of the things I haven't had a chance to talk about on these different review videos for these eBay listings and or bring a trailer is this is the upper back panel switch. We could do a whole video on it, but what I'll tell you is when you have a 66 or 67 convertible, this is an upgraded motor. It's a little bit heavier duty, and this is just a kind of a motor that looks very similar to one that powers a window regulator. This piece is billet, and this is an upgraded item from John Brewer. And when you start to see this, you know they put some money into potentially getting a rebuilt unit, and this is great. This piece here, sometimes referred to as the hockey puck, can be a pain to adjust. There are instructions, and John Cashman used to provide those. I'm sure Mike Moreno, now that he's taken over the business, he more than likely, if you purchase through him or John Brewer, they're going to provide the instructions. But this little piece kind of adjusts how far this flapper panel goes to the erect position or inside when it tucks up underneath. But bottom line here, when I see billet aluminum, it means it has the newer housing, and someone has spent the money to at least upgrade this. I think without the billet piece or the housing, it's somewhere in the range of $700 to $1,000 to kind of get the upgraded unit. These pieces here, I want to say that they weren't necessarily black. They looked more like kind of a galvanized metal color, but my assumption is if someone even had a nice car and they kind of did all these nice little things to this one, they took the time to maybe spray these black, upgrade the upper back panel switch, things like that. Again, you can't really see any flaws underneath this deck lid, so to speak. These deck lids, as I mentioned, do tend to rust out. So again, to have a nice deck lid, at least from the inside and the outside, is fantastic. The leather looks stunning. I mean, this, I've only seen in a couple cars in person where the leather looks this good. To me, it does look original. I've seen plenty of these cars, and I mean, it's just hard to find a car that has this nice of leather in it. All through here, we've talked about a couple of other 66 and 67s. A lot of times you'll see kind of just dust and dirt and just, kind of a semi-detail job. Not with this one. Certainly stunning. You see a couple of better photos here. And again, you see the passenger side. They did have different belt buckles for the seat belts in these years, so these are factory correct. And you can just literally see on this back piece of the seat, fantastic. I mean, just really, really nice. Now, we looked at a 67 the other day, and of course it had the power headrest. You can clearly see this one's all one piece, and it does not have that power headrest. And I forget if that was a 67 option only or not. The dash, these, as I mentioned to you before, they do tend to crack here. This is a stunning example of a 66 dash. At this point, my mind is already going, wow, this is a super nice car. But when you kind of look in here, you look to see like how nasty is all this, and it's not at all. I mean, it's really, really nice. You do see, of course, the rear seat belts. Now, this, at first, you kind of go, well, where's the foot pad that you've talked about before? This does look like, obviously a carpet, a carpet piece here, a floor mat. That's what I was trying to think of. This, my understanding, wouldn't be necessarily factory. Someone could have made these for them. That's perfectly fine. The ones I had on my 67 were kind of a clear looking color that would discolor over time. And those may get, those maybe from, one of the vendors might be getting made again. But bottom line is, I mean, this is fine. I'd rather see this in here. And I would probably leave this if I purchased it. It would just help keep the original carpet that much, nicer, if you will, if you drove it. Here you can see the auto drop is down. So when you push this rear door handle button in and you pull that door out, this window, both windows in the back should auto drop a few inches, maybe 3-4 inches. by allowing that. When you close the door, then it goes back up, and that allows for it to seal properly here. And that's part of the difference between the sedans and the convertibles. The convertibles have the rear auto drop, and it's so that when that window goes back up, it can seat nicely against this molding up here so that it's a real nice tight fit. Again, you can see the awesome car rear seat here. Now, I'm a fan of this, of the 64, 65 Lincolns. These seats, although the patterns are different in 66, they're still kind of the low back seat with the molding that goes over. And if I remember correctly, 67 seats are a little bit different, but I tend to get that kind of mixed in my mind. Now, you would think possibly if you were looking at this that we would be out of photos. I always encourage you to scroll down. And when you do so, you're typically going to see the first 10 or 15 photos that are going to be the same. This is where we got to a moment ago. And then, of course, you're going to see, based upon how they do the eBay listing, there are additional photos that can be added. So that's a great thing. Now, what you're seeing here, again, is a really nice interior. I tend to look and see, wow, how nice is the inside of the door? It's fantastic. And these moldings look really, really nice. Okay, someone really kept this car up or spent some money to do like a top-notch restoration. Again, a great photo here. You see the clock. You see typically around here, there'll be a little bit of tell on just, the heat. If this car was, stored in a standard garage. But, this all looks like it's really nice on here. This is where the ashtray comes out. Inside of the doors look fantastic. I just really want to know, was this a restoration or is this an original car? Because it really is nice. Rear seat from the passenger side. Same thing here. Looking at kind of some of the moldings, everything looks good. Everything looks good in here. You could sometimes look to see, I think we looked at a car the other day where a lot of this stuff was like overspray. If someone's doing a quick, what I call a respray paint job, a lot of times they're not going to take the time to paint, or to tape up and do certain things before they paint. So here it's kind of showing you that all of this stuff is really the way it should look. You got a really nice white top. I tend to look at the stitching to see how it looks. It looks great. We saw door handles the other day in another video, and I hate to keep referring back to those, but compare these cars if you're ever looking or you're in the market or one day that you want to buy one of these. These door handles look fantastic. Typically, you're going to see a lot of cracking and things like that, not from a structural perspective, but just from a visual perspective. These look fantastic. All of the stainless trim that's around the windshield looks great. I'm seeing the window kind of is, based upon my experience with these cars, this window is dropped here. That's one thing you will always want to ask if you're buying a convertible, or even if it's a sedan. But if it's a convertible, do the windows work? Do the rear auto drops work? You will spend some money to get these auto drops to work. You might be thinking, well, what if the auto drops don't work? You can still pull this door open, but when you push that button in to open the rear door and that auto drop doesn't come down, you're kind of tugging on it, and what it's going to do is it's going to wear out the weather stripping up here on top. And then when you slam it or go to close the door, it's not going to want to seat correctly because that window didn't go down and then come up and seal. So not the end of the world if it doesn't seal correctly, but you just want those auto drops to work. Here's where we're seeing 43,487. So if that's the true mileage, which very well may be, again, stunning example. No crack in the dash here where it's typical. All of this stainless in here, if it was a car that sat outside, there'd typically be some little bit of surface rust and things like that can be cleaned up. But again, this car looks fantastic. Here you've got the top in motion. This is key. I've mentioned this before. If it's a convertible and you're a seller, by all means, you want to reinforce the top works. Let's show some videos and or photos. You can also take your iPhone or Android device and do a video of the windows working. If you're a seller, do a walk around. It doesn't have to be anything, professional, and post it on YouTube. Even if it's a private link, you can then put the link in the bio and allow people to go look at them. This piece here, you can just see, again, it reminds me of the front dash. I mean, it is so nice. All underneath this, what we call package tray, where all of these cast parts are bolted to, and you can see the glass window. All of this stuff just really looks high class. I mean, this is very, very, very nice stuff. Typically, you're going to see surface rust in here and things like that. That isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I've seen some nice 66 and 67 Lincolns, even a green one that I helped a lady Amy sell, and it was not as nice as this, and it was a restoration. I mean, this is truly a nice car. You can see in here, I typically look to see, is there dirt? Are there leaves? Is there any tell in here where water had sat in these kind of areas? And you can see how big this is. I mean, water could easily sit in here. And a lot of times, the weather stripping's nasty, and there's dirt, and there's leaves and stuff. Of course, not in this example. Looking around here, everything looks great. All of these pieces, I mean, just really look like it's on another level. I hate to keep reiterating that, but listen, I've kind of been a little bit tough on some of these guys. This is a nice car. You can see here, even the rear view mirror, I mean, not even a smudge on it. You can see the person sitting in it. These do look brand new. The insulation that goes under the hood, I've talked a little bit about that. So that's a little indication that maybe some work was done to this car. I mean, certainly a detail. But when I look in here, the hood and everything is really, really, really nice. And even these little spots here, no big deal. I mean, it's a car, you know, for heaven's sake. It'd be one thing if you were looking to buy a 0-mile car that was 50 years old. But even if a car sat for 50 years, it's going to have little blemishes on it. So I would never be afraid of some of those little things you're going to see. Everything in the engine bay looks great. This is a 3-port, so it doesn't have the 2 screws on top, which I kind of mentioned the other day. You can see the 2 fuel lines, 1 and 2, and then, of course, the one that comes out here. Great stuff. Everything's clean, detailed, looks great. Everything's good here. Now, underneath the car, I only briefly looked at these photos before I hit record, and what you will see is something different than we've seen in the other cars. This car looks really, really, really nice underneath, okay? It's not a bad thing at all. You saw in some of the other videos, if you've watched them or you've looked at eBay, a car that's 50 years old that's been driven 40,000 miles is not going to look this nice underneath. It's just not, okay? Unless someone took time to put it on their own lift and detail and clean it and paint it and spray it and do those things. And hey, that could happen. But this is not a negative thing at all. This looks really, really good. But be skeptical. This is kind of a higher end car. If you see this type of thing, you always want to have someone look at it and make sure, because a lot of times this undercoating, whether it's rubberized or it's just paint, it can hide some things, okay? I don't think anything's hidden on this car. I do think it's that nice of a car, but just know these cars don't look this good after 40,000 miles and 50, 60 years. Everything's really nice underneath this, so it could have come from someone that was like a true enthusiast and someone that was very OCD, or it could have been a very, very nice car and went into the hands of kind of a reseller, and they could have said, hey, we want to put the extra mile in this one to up the, the ante, so to speak, in terms of the bidding on it. But I mean, truly, 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 like everything I've seen is really nice. This piece here I mentioned the other day underneath kind of the core support. Typically, I've seen this, and I had a 67 that was really rotted through here. We fixed it all, but you always want to look at this. You also want to take a screwdriver if you're underneath it. Of course, this is a nice car. I wouldn't just start jamming a screwdriver, but you would want to start looking to see, are there any holes? Are there any kind of structural challenges here? But again, on this car, not expecting that. You can see the exhaust obviously is not original, so that's nice. Gas tank looks really good. This looks like it's been powder coated, which I have a 67 gas tank that was powder coated, or it could have just been sprayed with whatever they sprayed everything. The key thing is they have the photos, okay, folks? I am not harping on these people at all. I think this is an awesome car. I would love to own this car. But you can see here, they're being upfront. They're showing you they have a lift or they have access to a lift. Or someone told them, listen, don't list this nice car. I've seen very nice cars be listed, and without these photos, it's going to make anyone that might have the money to buy one a little skeptical. Always have photos of the undercarriage of the vehicles. For whatever reason, even if you didn't post them, have them, because anybody that has any sense on buying a car is going to want to ask for those. Okay. Again, this trim here that's on the deck lid, these pieces here, which this is all stainless until right here, I believe these are pot metal, I think at this point, because mine had some pitting on it. I mean, these are just truly awesome. Some folks tend to think that these are taillights on 66, 67. They're not. The taillights are here. These are reflector lights. Okay, so you could do some customization. I wouldn't on this car, but these are reflector lights, and these are the reverse lights down here. The gapping looks fantastic, and there's not much more to say about this car. I mean, it is just that nice. Now, when I get down here, I mean, you can see anytime I see like all these terms and all this, I mean, it kind of shows that this is bottom line. This is a dealer, okay? This isn't just, someone that has a nice car and whatnot. You could even look on Primo, Classic. You can see a little bit more information on them. No neutrals, no negatives. But you can kind of see based upon where their shop is at, they park all the cars in the same spot. They have a lot of nice things. I tend to say, hey, look at what else they have for sale. That's going to be a little bit of a tell on how nice of their stuff is. Look at some of their reviews. Hope to deal with you again. Followers. This says 0 reviews, which that may be different than up here than feedback. But members since 2006, so over 15 years. But I think that's it. Let me just summarize. A 66 Lincoln Continental, currently at just north of 51K, reserve not met. That tells you it's gonna be a higher dollar car. You start to look at all the stuff and you go, wow, this is a nice car. Okay, it absolutely is. Still have someone put eyes on it. Make sure, they could, ask to start the car, roll down the windows, put the top up and down, have them take out their phone and make a video. If you can't travel to the car, have that person. I had a buddy do that for me, and I said, hey, Henry, do me a favor up in New Jersey. I said, take a video of this, start it if you can, let it idle a minute. Do you see anything that's kind of abnormal? And he was not a car guy at all. And he was like, yo, man, this car is really nice. Now, it wasn't a Lincoln, but it was part of a trade, and I needed to get some eyes on it. And he did that favor for me. If I were to give any feedback on this listing, so if you were a seller in the future, I would say positive, tons of photos. Positive, they spent some money to detail the car, or it was that nice, or it was a restoration. But bottom line, fantastic demonstration or representation, rather. The engine bay looks great. Underneath the car looks great. The interior looks great. My only feedback would be that you could take this to the next level potentially by taking a video, and you could link those videos in your description. Again, if you don't want all of it to be out in YouTube world, you could always put it as a private link, meaning that they have to have the link to view it. And then, of course, once you sell the car, you could always delete the video or make it non-viewable again. But you could do some video of the windows, including the auto drops going up and down. That reassures someone that, hey, it all does work. Turning the radio on, functioning the antenna up and down, doing those type of things, even the locks, if you will. All of that stuff will add to the presentation of the vehicle. Okay. If I look and I do Control F, and I do, let's say, powered by, power convertible, power windows, power convertible locks. You can kind of see here, nothing really says, hey, all the windows are working, all of this is working, the antenna works. But you would assume that with a car this nice, absolutely it does. So I'll just leave it at this and say, this is a high-end posting. This is a high-end car. all of that stuff probably works, but hey, have someone check it out. Does the AC work? Does the heat work? Do the windows work? Do the auto drops work? Does the top work? Does the power antenna work? Does the car kind of stop as it should? And more than likely it does. So ODB, the Lincoln Addict, thank you so much. Consider listening to Lincoln Addict Podcast however you find podcasts. You can also Google Lincoln Addict Podcast. That will land you on the website where you can hit play. It's that simple. Or you can find us on YouTube now. The last few episodes did auto batch. If you want to listen to like episode, let's say 1 through 21, you can download Podbean, listen on Spotify or other ways, as I mentioned, however you find podcasts. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. We are out of here. See ya.